In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to design a resume using tables in a word processing program, and this should supplement the PDF that you have linked to Canvas. And so we're going to work with this particular resume because it's relatively simple to lay out in a word processing program. It's actually a two-column resume, and I'm going to show you how you can get the effect of the two columns with the header running across the page, and then if you look at the relevant coursework section, how that single row is divided into multiple rows. And so I'm going to begin in Microsoft Word here, and we're going to just work with the first few sections. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my table, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to insert 4 rows and 2 columns. And so this is what I have. Then what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to just start building my resume text in here. And so I'm going to copy and paste the text into the table cells. So as you can see here, I've just pasted the first 3 sections and the header into my word processing program. And you can see here that these columns and rows are equally distributed. But if you hold your cursor down here, you can actually adjust the line length. So for example, our major resume sections are going to have a little shorter line length than the actual text. Now you'll notice that in this, the header runs across the 2 columns, and that's a very easy thing to do in a desktop publishing program. All you've got to do is hold down your mouse and select this top row, and I'm going to just right click here and I'm going to select the option here that says merge cells. What that's going to do is it's going to open it up so that entire header will run across my table, but you can see here that my other tables and rows stay connected and stay separated and organized. You'll also notice that if we go back and look at this resume, that the relevant coursework section is divided into 2 different columns. That's actually a nice way to use space up in your resume. Also gives you some more room to work with. So that's a very easy fix as well. All I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this particular cell that has my relevant coursework. I'll right click again, and this time I'm going to split cells, and that will give me the option to add a number of columns or rows to this particular cell. I'm just going to add 2 columns, and then I'll move this information here so that I can divide it into 2 columns. And so you can see, just using basic rows and columns, I begin to create the look that we see here. Once you have everything built into your grid, you can begin to add cell spacing, and you can begin to style it in the way that you want. So you can see here that I'm starting to style the resume. I've just centered the heading, and then I've capitalized the major sections to better reflect what the original looked like. You'll also find that if you're using a desktop word processing program like Word, under the layout tool here, you'll be able to actually adjust the cell margins to give your cells some more space. So I'm going to click this option here, and you can see that the default for left and right is already 0.08. I'm going to bump up my top and bottom to 0.4, and you'll notice that when I do this, it adds more spacing in between the cells, which gives it a cleaner look and gives it a little bit more spread out. You also can begin to start to style your individual sections in here to better reflect what we have over here. So I'm going to start doing that. So I've finished styling my resume to kind of reflect what we have over here, just to demonstrate to you how we can go from here to here. And again, I just styled my major fonts here with Bookman Old Style. So the header up here, and then the individual section names, and then the body text itself is Garamond. The last thing that you always want to do when you're designing a resume, though, is you want to turn off all of these grid lines that separate the columns and the rows. That's helpful for you when you're designing the resume, but you don't necessarily want to print it out or give it to prospective employers that way. And the easiest way to do that is to go up to the top of the table here where you see these four arrow points and click that, which will select the entire table. And then you want to go up here to design, and you'll see that borders will already be highlighted for you. You can click that down button and you can actually click no border, and what that will do is it will actually eliminate all the border. And you might find that then you want to play around with your spacing a little bit more. So I'm going to add a little bit more cell margin just to give it a little bit more space, but you can begin to play with that. You'll also note that you can add individual rows and tables. So if we wanted to create that bottom line after the header to create more separation, I would just select this one row. I'd go to Design, and then I'd click my Borders button, and what I would just select instead is bottom border. You also can change the weight, the thickness, okay? And again, if I do this, we've added that line in there, and again, that's how you get the effect that you begin to see here. So all of this can be done really easily in a word processing program, just using basic tables, learning columns and rows, learning how to merge cells so that you can spread across different columns like we did in the header here, and then also splitting an individual cell so that you can create this 2, 3, or however many column look that you'd like.